Hello, everybody. Greetings from London. My name's Katie King. This is my new book, AI Strategy for Sales and Marketing. I'm going to be talking about that quite a bit with Phil over the next 30 to 40 minutes. And really, the best advice I was ever given in my 30-year career was to not have imposter syndrome, to not always think that everybody is better than you. I grew up in an apartment, a local authority block of flats on the 11th floor in a downtrodden part of North London, and you always think that everyone else is better than you. And that was the best advice. So have that confidence, have that self-esteem, and go out there and make it happen.
Wow. That's great. I love that. When did you get that, Katie? Who gave you that advice?
My first boss. So I left university, so I would be 20, 21 actually, because I did a degree in languages and I lived abroad for a year. So about 21, and he was a tough boss and quite intimidating. And I can't say I loved him, but it was the best advice and it stayed with me all the way through. And I pass that on to people now because even clients I have who are super successful, they still have this imposter syndrome. So, there's a lot of incompetence out there at every level of business, in every job function, in every industry sector. So don't always think, everyone's better than you. Don't think if you make a mistake, that's it. It's out there, it's happening. You just need to, keep focused, keep learning, and you'll be fine.
I love that. That's so good. I mean, it's so good that you learned that early on because, one thing that I've learned, right, is the only people that have imposter syndrome is people who are competent. Like idiots, they never think that they're a fraud. They just, oh yeah, everybody's stupid like me. I mean, it's cool, right?
That's absolutely true because you're self-aware, aren't you? If you're smart, you're self-aware, you know what you don't know, you're always wanting to learn. And I've written this book and I've been in AI for 10 years, but I know I've got to keep learning every day. I can't stay still. So, that's a prime example of that. We've got to all, whether you've just graduated in marketing or you like me, you've been doing it for 30 years, we've got to keep learning because AI is changing the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that. So, love the book. So, congratulations, AI Strategy for Sales and Marketing. Hooray. So, 10 years though in AI, Katie. How did that start? How did you even get interested in AI?
Great question. I'm not a technologist. Again, reassuring people, this is not about knowing how to code. This is me for 30 years being a management consultant and a business consultant, always reading, always staying ahead of the curve and being heavily involved in tech. And because I've been heavily involved in tech, I've always sort of seen what's coming and been ready to be on the wave and over it, ahead of it. And a client was heavily involved in property tech and the built environment, so cleaning, that whole sort of construction real estate. And me and two colleagues wrote a white paper, all those years ago on how AI was going to change that industry. And it went from there. And I thought, wow, if this is happening in this sector, what about my industry sector? What about the sectors of my clients? And again, not having imposter syndrome, thinking, me, who's going to be interested in what I have to say? Yeah, of course they are, and let's go out there and find a publisher. And therefore, it's about knowing how to exploit platforms like LinkedIn, putting yourself forward, not too pushy, but in a confident way.
Yeah, there's a fine line between confident and pushy, and I love that you are definitely on the confident side. So with that, Katie, a lot of people are concerned about AI. One of the things that I saw yesterday is this whole idea that perhaps Sam Altman said that AI for like retina scans and stuff like that to self-determine that. So should we be afraid of AI?
Yeah, I think we should in some respects because we can't be complacent. And the game's changed a lot with the advanced generative AI that we've seen really take off in the last 6 months with Bard and DALI and ChatGPT and so on. And really the proof of the pudding is the tech companies are asking to be regulated. They're saying, and it's quite hypocritical in many respects because they say on the one hand, regulate us, and then they go and invest in more and more and more of this stuff. But they are worried, and the G7 are saying it, and the top tech CEOs are saying, here are our signatories. we feel we should pause development of advanced large language models, as they're known, because we are concerned. So yeah, we've got to be concerned, but the horse has bolted, really, hasn't it? We've got to really, I guess, think of something like an equivalent of a UN treaty, because laws are being developed in the US, in the EU, and in other countries around the world. But multinational companies operate, obviously, in a multinational environment. And I think there's got to be more joined up thinking. And that's why it's actually quite reassuring to see that, maybe a little bit late, but that these serious people like the G7 leaders are starting to take it very seriously. I'm not overly worried, and most of the people that I interviewed for my books were not overly worried. But it is a bit game changing what we've seen in recent months and in this past year. But we've got to collaborate, we've got to work together on it, we've got to take its potential to do good at the most macro level and take advantage of it in our own companies and sectors and so on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Collaboration is going to be key, because we can't keep up by ourselves. I mean, that's one of the awesome things about you, is I get to learn from you, and I get to ask you questions, and hopefully other people will learn, and then they'll develop more questions, and we can all kind of learn together. And I think that's super wonderful. So thank you for agreeing to spend some time with me today. I'm just really glad.
I'm learning. Like I say, I'm learning. I'll learn from the questions that come in. I learn when I go to keynotes and conferences, because peer-to-peer is important too. So yeah, we're all learning.
Absolutely.
I'm not making it up. I'm not talking about winging it and making it up. I'm saying that be open-minded, because the change is there every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Embrace it, learn, move forward, for sure. Certainly stuff we can do. So with that, Katie, one of the things that I want to talk to you about is the cost of this AI, because we don't all have 1 million computers to be able to generate all these models. So does it have to be expensive, or can small businesses take advantage of AI too?
Yeah, it depends what you mean. So there's a whole family of AI, and we could be looking at the way an organization, a retailer or a telecoms company or a marketing agency is going to operationalize it, use it across its processes, its back end, its all the different aspects of the journey for the customer. That's a bit more expensive, and we can't all afford that, but we can all afford to take advantage of AI in our businesses, because AI is reshaping HR, it's reshaping marketing, sales, CX. And let's face it, I'm sure most of your listeners, subscribers have tried Chat GPT and equivalents. There's amazing stuff out there that's free. So there are those sorts of opportunities. And then there are the tools, the point-to-point tools, Phrasee, Concurred, many, many more, even Copilot, Microsoft 365, that are very cost-effective, very low cost. So we've got a whole range of AI software-based tools that we can use really inexpensively and even free in our businesses. And then we can take it to another level and invest tens of thousands and upwards if we feel that we have that budget and we have that opportunity to do that.
Wonderful. That's heartening to hear that we don't have to spend a lot of money on that. So let's talk about a couple of those spaces. You mentioned HR, which is interesting to me. Like, HR is traditionally people. So we're going to talk about AI for HR. Talk to me about how you've seen that play.
I'll caution this, because we've got to be careful if we bring too much tech into HR. And by the HR bit, I mean the front-facing recruiting of new staff. AI could be used through a chatbot to do the interviews. So you could be an AI interviewing me, a graduate or someone with 20 years experience, for a job. Yeah, you've been trained on the best HR recruiters, and you can take away some of the burden of that. That's one bit. You might have AI games that take people through all of those tests that you do when you're getting through to the next stage. So there's all of that. You could be programming the AI to sift the CVs, to help you in an unbiased way, if you've programmed it well, to do very effective diverse recruiting. So there's the operational back-end side, the admin, and then there's the front-facing side, and then there's the scheduling and all kinds of other things in between, or the writing of adverts for the job adverts, or help to understand the sentiment of your staff to reduce churn. So there's a whole raft of AI HR tools, but also productivity tools. So, but the point I made at the beginning of that, the kind of caution is, if you're looking at my company and you're saying, oh, I've heard you're a great company to work for, you've won this award, and then every step of the way, it's faceless, and I've got no human interaction, and it's bot, no real people, I'm going to maybe think, I don't want to work for that kind of company, particularly post-pandemic. I want to feel what's that company stand for, its values and so on. So there's definitely scope at all levels of HR, learning and development, even some augmented reality and virtual reality training and stuff. Tons of tech that they really can take advantage of, but just so they've got to be careful to keep the human in the loop.
Yeah, keep the human in HR and human resources is really important. I mean, the reason that most people want to work at a place is because the human's there, not just because of the tech. So I think that's a good lesson. So with that, marketing seems to be much more obvious as a place to use HR. We know it can create content for us and it can do things like that, maybe that analysis of some of that, and partner with CX, if you will, to do that. But what are some cool trends that you're seeing in marketing that maybe people aren't as much aware of?
A good one is personalization. And in my book, it's the paradox. I have a whole chapter on the paradox of personalization, because people think, not just people that are coming at this completely fresh, but even people that know a bit about it and so on, they're thinking, this is dehumanizing us. And this is a little bit of big scary robot coming, taking my jobs. Whereas actually, think of a marketing professional, comms professional, or doctor or barrister. If they're up to speed and trained and have access and budget for the latest tools, really the AI, which people call artificial intelligence, is really augmented intelligence. And so AI for me equals big data. Big data means insights. And that means, let's take TGI Fridays as a brand. With my consent to use data, my data, as a brand, they can stop me being treated in a homogenous way where it might be female, 45 to 60. They can say, this is Katie. She comes into our restaurant 3 times a month. She orders this, her husband orders that, her birthday's here. And not only is that great in store, in restaurant, but for my marketing, for digital ways of dealing with me. And the banks and the retailers do that as well. So we're really talking about hyper personalization, smart marketing. Just like eventually with the right budget, we'll see smart healthcare and smart education. No longer one big class of 30, but people with different needs, different pace, etc. So that's really what we're talking about. And much, much more. I can go into a lot more detail, but maybe we'll expand on that in a minute.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely expand on that. But I really like that idea of that hyper personalization, because we have seen so much of thinking that people are personalizing just because they include first name and include an industry. But we really need to bring that person back in personalization and really drive that through. So I like that example of how we take what feels like maybe disparate points and we're able to put that together to tell a story about Katie, as opposed to just, she's female, she wears pink and she wears glasses. Well, that doesn't help us any. So tell us, go a little deeper on that, Katie, because I think that's really instructive for us.
What it also means is that any organization, not just a big brand that has, millions of customers, any type of organization, a charity, a telecoms company, a small marketing outfit, can really get granular with its segmenting, and can, if you think of the definition of marketing is about satisfying customer needs profitably. Now, if you're in the third sector, the profit bit is less important. But you put the client or customer at the center of everything you do, and you can only do that if you know who they are, what they're about, what their ecosystem is, and what you have to sell or offer that is a solution to that point of pain. So we're really talking about relevance, putting ourselves in those platforms. So it touches everything. It touches everything from the way the sales team decide which doors they're going to knock on and which phone calls they're going to make and which LinkedIn emails and the way they're going to go about doing their selling. It helps shape the product or service. It helps the marketing and comms teams to think about the go-to-market strategies. So actually, if you really know your existing customers and you can categorize them better, then you can really know lookalike customers or clients. And therefore, you can work out with the right help and research, how do you find out how they're influenced? And then you're doing very smart, effective marketing. You're not putting your finger in the air going, oh, last year's spreadsheet, we did X, Y, Z. Let's copy that, increase it by 5. You're being really strategic. And your chances, therefore, of increasing your revenue and your profits are much, much greater. So it's smart marketing, really. We've done years and years of guesswork and very manual, and the AI can speed up a lot of that for us.
Yeah, definitely. Much more cost effective when you're zeroing in on actually what works and what doesn't, as opposed to, okay, I'm just going to look around and hope like heck that works.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So really that becomes, if we categorize it, smarter targeting for sales teams. I call it the 3Ds, the dirty, the dull, and the dangerous. You're taking away some of the monotonous aspects of what we do and automating some of the routine tasks. And it's a bit cliche, but it should, if we do it properly, free us up to focus on the more human bits of sales or marketing or HR. And I think democratize things and make the playing field a little bit more even. So you haven't got to have 30 years of experience and grey hair, but equally you come out of university with a degree yesterday, you might not be that current because your course might not have covered it. So we've all got to be really current each day, each month. You can't rest on your laurels just because you've graduated or because you've got 30 years. So therefore, I think it changes the dynamics of industries and the way you reward and how you hire and what you look for in job roles.
Awesome. So let's talk about that before we move into sales and leadership, because we've briefly touched a little bit of sales. But Katie, how do you keep up? Like, what are you reading to stay on top of the latest AI stuff? Because you mentioned how important it is to stay current. How are you staying current?
Yeah, really good question, and it's hard. So I look at ChatGPT and I get feeds from that. I look at the news, Google every day, and I do Google. And when you do a search, instead of just looking at all, I look at news. So if I'm prepping something for a client in retail, I'll do AI, capital AND, which is your Boolean search, which filters the algorithm. So AI and education, AI and retail, and then I look under news and I see what the latest news is on that. I follow certain people on LinkedIn. I might look at really credible sources like World Economic Forum, Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, Bain, Harvard Business Review. So I'll kind of flit around, but I'll be following them in groups and lists on Twitter. I'll be following key people like PwC and others on LinkedIn, and I'll then look at their posts and then go straight to that article myself. So I try to stay up to speed with a mixture of watching some podcasts, looking at mainstream, like there's a brilliant BBC Radio 4 program, Women's Hour, and they do a tech show and they do a legal show. So if I tune into the best broadcast and podcast and print and online news and search very specifically for my subject, I'm going to get a good feed.
Good. I like that. That's great insight for folks to do that. We can all do that. That's free. None of that costs much, right? I mean, certainly there's publications out there as well, but if it's printed, it's probably going to be behind. So I like the idea
This is
using the
fine
web
too.
for that.
This doesn't mention generative AI, but at the end of the day, I'm writing all the time about generative AI in my posts and stuff, but there's so much else in there that it's not, generative AI is not going to change the world, you know, in terms of it will help you come up with posts and reports and adverts. You've still got to have your strategy. You've still got to understand your target customers. You've still got to have frameworks and codes of conduct and methodologies. And so a lot of that business expertise is in there, and you've got to learn from other people's mistakes and successes, which is all in there too. But again, it's that mixture, isn't it, of all those different sorts of sources.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, this is a good. Well, it's I can't say just a primer because it's way more than that. But I mean, it's a good starting point for folks if they're looking to connect stuff up, right? Marketing, sales, customer experience,
Absolutely.
super important. So I like that. So let's kind of bring it home here and let's talk about sales, Katie, because sales is tough, and it's, you know, we're getting more people think about that, and it's like, I don't want to talk to a robot. I want somebody who's actually got my best interest at heart. So talk to me about some of the trends you're seeing in the sales space around AI.
Yeah, a really good question, because you framed it there with, I don't want to talk to a robot, but equally I don't want my time wasted by people who don't know me and my needs and my history with them. So if I phone my utility provider like I did back at Christmas because I want to buy the next level of broadband, which I see my neighbours got, and it takes me an hour to be passed around 4 or 5 different salespeople in that company, and each time I get passed around, they don't know my name and they haven't got my history and they've got no CRM. They are, as a huge technology company, really wasting an opportunity to have deep insights on their prospect or their customer. So sales and CRM. So really we're talking, there's a mixture of digital tools. So it may just be very good CRM that's needed, okay? And if we use Salesforce and Einstein and some of those, they've got some AI in them. So actually many of the established players in sales, Pardot and many others, are taking advantage of AI. So in a way, it doesn't really matter whether it's AI or not, but if we are digitized and we have proper insights on our clients or customers and our prospective clients and customers, then we can tailor our products and service to them and our marketing and package up what they need, which is CX, you know, and take them on the journey, which is CX, that's appropriate for them. So you can see there already how marketing, sales, and CX is hugely overlapping. And so really we've got to think about many different AI sales tools that we can use, but even ChatGPT, you know, with the right prompts, we can get it to give us, and I worked with some sales teams a couple of days ago in Amsterdam, and they're all over ChatGPT, and they are saving hours and hours of time every day, every member of the team. So you could be saving a third of your time every day just by using a tool, a generative AI tool. But you've got to know how to use it. You've got to know how to prompt it properly. And there's loads of cheat sheets out there for these tools. But you're saying, like, find me a cheat sheet for sales. And it might be, write me a sales pitch in a very informal tone of voice, quote this journal, mention the 3 barriers that we typically get for not wanting to buy our service, and give me 3 social media posts that go with that as well. And you know, that's the kind of thing, whereas most people go, oh, just write me a blog on AI, or, you know, write me a blog on blockchain. You've got to be smart, like a long tail keyword search for Google. You've got to tell the AI is not going to know your business and your strategy. So you still need business strategy. You still need to be smart and know which questions to ask. So I think, you know, go and look at Bard and DALL-E and ChatGPT. Go and find how you can If you're a Microsoft 365 user, look at Copilot, because that's taking AI into Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, Excel, and it's going to pull stuff from every one of those into one area. Find that email where I talk about this report, summarize that report, turn it into 3. It's incredible. It's like your own personal assistant.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, you said something there, though, that's very important, and that is you still have to have a strategy. This is not going to fix no strategy. This is not going to fix the lazy salesperson who just puts in, write me an article about AI. You need to actually understand who your customer is and what their challenges are and how your solution helps solve their problems in ways that maybe they haven't thought of. It can't, and knowing your history, to your point, right? We've talked 3 times before, and here's what we talked about. So now the conversation is way more rich. So now the conversation is way more human, because just because I know what I want to say doesn't mean that you're going to ask me questions that I was prepared for, but at least I'll have the knowledge base to be able to intelligently speak. Is that
spot on? And think of the funnel, the marketing and sales funnel. I'm being brought in as a thought leader for companies who are doing selling, but they know they can't sell in a really overt, obvious way. They've got to do thought leadership. So these salespeople need to be marketeers, and marketeers need to be sharp and have the data at their fingertips. So it's a horrible word, but I've seen the word smarketing. It's not a nice mashup of those two. But sales and marketing are much, much more tightly aligned than they ever were before, because we've all got tech tools at our disposal that we can use. So yeah, you're right. Keep the client at the center of it. Understand his, her needs. Tweak, tailor. You can do product development, so you can tweak and tailor, and then package it and message it appropriately, and decide where in the funnel you are, where you're going to do storytelling versus a sharp pitch or an in-mail or an invite for a demo, etc. And the AI is there across that whole journey.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Well, before we wrap up here, I just want to share, friends, if you want to learn more about Katie and her book, AI Strategy for Sales and Marketing, you can go to aiandbusiness.co.uk. All of Katie's great stuff is there. She's on LinkedIn. She's got a ton of thought leadership out there to help you really contextualize this for your organization, though you still need a strategy. As we mentioned, she can help with a lot of this stuff. A lot of brilliant stuff there, Katie. But if folks want to get started, right, this is often the question I get is, wow, that's a lot. How do I get started? So what are the first step or two that people need to take to get started on this journey?
You know what? On that website, under my consulting tab, is my scorecard for success. And it's a distillation of all the incredible work I've learned from others and I've come up with. And it gives you this scorecard, and you can gamify it. So they can go and look at that. But what we're really talking about here is start with 3 things. What are 3 problems or challenges that you have today in your business, and go and research how AI might be able to help you. So that means let's have a watching brief on our industry. How is it changing? What tools are coming into it? Have a watching brief on your competition. Go and do some due diligence on a couple and do some free demos of some of these tools, and have a 6-month plan. Don't worry about 1, 2, 5 years. Have a simple little 6-month plan that says, I'm going to do these new things. I'm going to go and do these demos. I'm going to go and look at these tools, and I'm going to delegate someone in my team to do X, Y, Z. And that is keeping it simple, but very pragmatic and short term. And that's what we need to do, or else we'll put it off and it will never happen.
Yeah, really awesome. So that scorecard for success is super helpful. A lot of great stuff there. Little quiz that you can go through to spit some good stuff out. Great suggestion there on how to get started. So Katie, we mentioned aiandbusiness.co.uk to get to know you. Our friends at Kogan Page also put together a nice little discount. So friends, if you go to Katie's website and you click through and you find the book, AI Strategy for Sales and Marketing, if you use the code Kogan Page 20, Kogan Page 20, you get 20% off, which is nice. The book is worth it, though, whether you get 20% off or not, Katie. So congratulations on a beautiful book. Any last thoughts before I let you go?
Yeah, don't be frightened by it. It's exciting, and don't be frightened by it. You might be people here listening who are 20 or 50. I'm 56, so don't think this is the young people's game. It's for all of us who are hungry to continue to succeed. And then one final thing is purpose. You know, what are we all here for? I love Simon Sinek. I love why. You know, it's not what we do, or it's not, you know, it's not what or how, it's why we do what we do. And so think about this in your organizations. The world is changing. Think about maybe how we can use it to free us up as organizations and teams to maybe give back a little bit and do something cool. And we're doing that with a school AI pro bono program. So yeah, keep that top of mind as well. Maybe the AI just buys you a little bit of time and money to do that.
Yeah, free you up to do some great work so that you can really make a difference and live your purpose. Love that, Katie. Thank you so much. And friends, again, go to aiandbusiness.co.uk. Get to know Katie King even more. Get her book, AI Strategy for Sales and Marketing. And don't be afraid. Just get started. You can do this stuff. Thank you, Katie.